So which one do you want? That's the question. Do you want a Wyse, which is cheap? Do you want a Pi, which is cool? Don't know. Let's use this thing, the power meter, to find out. Right, let's do some actual benchmarking. We've got a power meter set up here, so let's plug this Wyse in. And there's this generic power supply, but it is what it is. So the basic here is, so there's an initial load, but it will settle down, so eventually 0.8 watts. Okay, so that's your baseline. That's with the unit turned off. So if we turn it on, then it will start up. So a bit of a spike there, and then once it's loaded, it then settles down. So there we go. So it will settle down to roughly about 7 watts, something like that. Let's just give it a second. Yeah, so 7 watts is its baseline. It's doing nothing. So if we then run a series of tests, so I have Sysbench set up. Whoops. So we run. I'm going to make a note of all this stuff. So Sysbench CPU run. Maximum power rating 12, 13.6, 13.8. So 13.6 was the maximum. So the CPU does 1,128 events per second, a maximum of 13.6 watts. We've also got a memory test. Let's run that. .1, 12.4, yeah, 12.4 watts maximum. So that is shifting 233 megasecond. And for the I/O test, do Sysbench. It's a bit more complicated. File I/O file test mode equals SE sequential write and read. Specify to run. There we go. So up to 10, 11, 11.2. So that's 11.2 watts. And we have a write, let's say 58 megasecond. Okay, let's just run that again. We're up to 11.2, 12.1. 12.4, same as the other one actually, 12.4. Okay, so averaging it out. So we've got 13.6 for CPU, 12.4 for memory, 12.4 for I/O. Okay, so we have a number of things per second, and we have a watt value. So you should be able to calculate down the unit of load per watt, right? Right, next we can test the Raspberry Pi 4. With 4 gig, so the baseline load is a bit lower, so it's at 5.6. Now it's a little bit unfair because I'm running the X Windows, but it should be fine. Let's see whether we have Sysbench. I think we've got Sysbench installed. I'm pretty sure we have. Yeah. Okay. So let's do the CPU test first. CPU. So what is it doing? Wow, 5.9. Huh? So it's only added 0.3 watts. Really? Let's just do that again. Okay, 6.2. It was a maximum of 6.2, and it has 2,337 events per second. Okay, fine. Let's do the memory test. Whoops. Wow, it's not even visible on the meter. Try that again. So yeah, 5.6 is not even visible. Wow, okay. So that is shifting 785 megasecond, as we did before. That's substantially more than the Wyse. Let's have a look at the file performance. So file IO, file test mode equals sequential write read. I'll actually run it first. 6.5, 6.8, 7. That's probably, so 7 was the maximum. Let's run that again. That's probably because it's using the SSD rather than the SD card, because that's how it's configured. So 7.0 is the maximum on that one, and the transfer rate is 28 a second. Okay, right, so let's do some calculations. Let's have a look at the raw numbers. So here's the comparison of the Wyse versus the Pi. So you can see here, this is the default idle power, which is higher on the Wyse than it is on the Pi. You can see the amount of CPU to events per second it could handle on this sysbench for the Wyse and the P4. You can see the P4 is doing a lot more work. It's actually getting a lot more done. And then when you calculate down the metric per watt, you can see the quite large difference there. So it's double the amount. So the percentage difference in efficiency is for the Wyse versus the P4. It's about half as efficient in terms of CPU. If we then do the same thing for memory, we get a metric of about 18 per watt, and we normalize that down, and you can see it's a lot less efficient. So the memory, I mean, the amount of throughput is stark difference. So the Wyse is transferring sort of 233 meg a second, whereas the P4 is 785, is a lot higher, and the efficiency is massively better. It's more modern. The Wyse is DDR3, so it's a bit old school. The only metric where the Wyse is a bit better is on file IO, and that is because it's using an internal SATA socket rather than going through USB 3 and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, whatever. So that gives you an idea. So pound for pound, the Pi4 is a lot better in terms of CPU and memory. Drive maybe a little bit less, but let's call it pretty much the same. I mean, the difference is negligible. One key difference of which I haven't put on here is obviously cost. Now, these Wyse units, even with the SSD, they're looking about sort of 15, 20 quid per unit, whereas a Pi4 with 8 gig of memory, it's not going to be 20 quid. You're looking at 100 quid. So in theory, you could get 5 Wyses for the price of 1 Pi. So it really depends whether power efficiency is the most important thing. whether actual grunt is the most important thing. This is more equivalent to Pi0 in terms of performance, but one key differentiator is the fact that, apart from the cost, is the fact that the Wyse terminal runs on a 19-volt power supply, which is a bit annoying. It's not USB-C, which is a lot more ubiquitous, a lot more common. So yeah, there's those. This comparison is basically, these are the raw numbers, and yeah, I hope you find that interesting and informative. It's been an interesting exercise in doing this comparison. I still like the idea of using these Wyse terminals, and yes, if I would replace them with Pi4s or even Pi5s, a drop of a hat, but it's massive amounts of money. The investment in a cluster of these thin client Wyse terminals is pennies, in comparison. So yeah, I guess it depends on what you want to use it for. But there you go. Anyway, see you next time. Cheers.